Hollywood's biggest bidding war has just hit the final boss level. Paramount has until Monday to drop a best and final number, and if they go big, Netflix can counter. This is the weekend where Batman, HBO, and CNN get a new owner, or the whole thing detonates. Paramount says they cleared a major antitrust hurdle, and they're basically already winning. Netflix, on the other hand, says, I'm paraphrasing here, that's not a win. That's a participation trophy with extra paperwork. And Warner Brothers Discovery is standing in the middle like, cool, fight over us. We'll be over here counting zeros. I was not planning on making a video this weekend, but then Thursday happened, and Friday happened. And now there are Senate investigations, federal regulators, explosive questions about CNN and Trump, and a billionaire with 48 hours to make the biggest call of his life. So here we are, emergency update. Let's go. Welcome back, returning subscribers, new viewers. Well, you guys picked a genuinely wild time to show up. I'm the Critical Nerd, where we keep expectations low and the receipts high. A little quick housekeeping, if you would. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Ring that notification bell because this story is moving faster than a studio executive running away from accountability. Now, here's the situation as of this Saturday morning, February 21st. Warner Brothers Discovery has signed a deal with Netflix. $83 billion for the crown jewels. You know, Warner Brothers, film and TV, HBO Max, and the DC universe. But WBD also gave Paramount a narrow prove-it window. Netflix granted a 7-day waiver, a window for WBD to hear Paramount's best and final offer. That window ends, well, this coming Monday, February 23rd. So yes, 48 hours left is not clickbait. It's math. This weekend is basically put your money on the table or go home. And the reason WBD opened this window, well, there's two. David Zaslav loves nothing more than a bidding war he doesn't personally have to win. And the second is he needs to be able to say he considered all options, legally, fiducially, and for the cameras. So the timeline is Monday, February 23rd, the moment of truth. Paramount's window slams shut. Then you fast forward to February 26th, WBD's Q4 earnings call. Also the day some very uncomfortable Senate questions need answers. I'll get there in a second. Then you got March 2nd. Paramount's hostile tender offer to shareholders, expires. Then March 20th, the WBD shareholder vote on the Netflix deal, which some would say is the guillotine. Every one of those dates matters. But Monday is where the story turns. Let's talk money, the almighty dollar, because that's what this is actually about. Paramount's all-in bid, roughly $108 billion, $30 a share in cash. For the whole company, they want everything. Warner Brothers, HBO, DC, CNN, TNT, HGTV, Food Network, every single asset. Netflix's deal, on the other hand, roughly $83 billion, $27.75 a share. But only for the good stuff, what they're calling the crown jewels, studio streaming, including HBO Max, DC, the entire Warner library. Now the cable networks, they get spun off into a new company called Discovery Global, loaded with about $17 billion in debt and left on the side of the road. So Paramount is basically screaming, we will pay more, pick us. And Netflix is saying, we're not paying for everything. We're buying what matters. That difference is really important, especially for the employees that are still working there. Because what Paramount's bigger number actually means in corporate speak is, synergies. And synergies is a fancy word for mass layoffs and department purges. Paramount is projecting $6 billion in cost savings from this deal. $6 billion with a B. You don't find $6 billion under a couch cushion. You find it by eliminating the people who overlap. That's why the mood inside WBD has reportedly shifted toward Netflix. Because if you're a WBD staffer and you're doing this math, Netflix might buy the engine, Paramount might buy the car, the garage, and then fire everyone who knows how the engine works. And there's one more wrinkle on the money side. Paramount's offer isn't a, I'll just say, a fixed, clean number. Netflix, they went full all cash. Paramount's $30 a share sounds simple, but they've also got, well, reportedly, sovereign wealth funds backing from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi, which Netflix has been loudly flagging as a national security concern. So the simple cash offer comes with some geopolitical baggage that regulators are absolutely going to dig into. Now we get to the big headline from yesterday, Friday, Paramount's HSR clearance. Here's what happened. There's a federal law called the Hart-Scott-Rodino Antitrust Act, the HSR Act. Any merger above a certain size has to go through a DOJ review. The DOJ can demand more information, a second request, which extends the clock. Paramount got hit with one in December. Last week, Paramount certified they complied. That triggered a 10-day waiting period. Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, that clock ran out. Paramount immediately filed with the SEC and declared there is now no statutory impediment in the U.S. to closing their acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery. And if you're a normal person watching CNBC Friday afternoon, you heard, "Oh, the government approved it." No, not so fast, my friends. Here's the translation for normal humans. The HSR waiting period expiring means the government's mandatory review clock ran out. That's it. The DOJ can still investigate. The DOJ can still sue to block the deal. The DOJ has done exactly that multiple times after an HSR waiting period expired. It's a procedural checkpoint, not a green light. Netflix's chief legal officer was right there with the fire extinguisher. And I quote, "Paramount Skydance continues to mislead stockholders and distract from the facts. Routine HSR milestones do not signal DOJ approval, nor that any decision has been made. They are a long way from doing so." And here's the kicker. Buried in Paramount's own SEC filing, they literally acknowledge they don't have a deal. They still need to sign a merger agreement with WBD, get shareholder approval, and clear regulators in other countries. Paramount is waving a procedural trophy on a race they haven't officially entered. Meanwhile, Netflix is still responding to its own DOJ second request, but that's for a deal that is signed. When Netflix certifies compliance, their waiting period is 30 days, not 10. That's because all cash offers like Paramount's get a shorter window. Netflix's longer path is actually the sign of a more substantive regulatory review. So why is Paramount pushing this narrative so hard? Well, it's pretty simple. They want to convince WBD shareholders who've been told Paramount can't clear regulators that the regulatory risk argument no longer holds. It's really PR warfare. And honestly, it's not stupid, but it's not the green light they're selling it as either. Okay, so here's the one that made me put down my protein shake Thursday morning. 8 Democratic senators, Chuck Schumer, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas herself, Amy Klobuchar, Dick Durbin, Richard Blumenthal, Mazie Hirono, who I think is one of the dumbest people in the Senate, just my personal opinion, and Peter Welch, sent a formal letter to David Ellison demanding he preserve all documents and communications related to Paramount WBD's takeover bid. That alone would be a story, but it's the questions that are genuinely explosive. They want to know, did Ellison or anyone on his behalf visit the White House to meet with Trump or his administration? Did he meet with Trump in the days before February 4th, which is the exact date Trump went on national television and told Tom Lamas he decided not to get involved in the WBD review? They want to know if Ellison donated money to Trump, directly or through PACs. They want to know if Paramount lobbyists communicated with DOJ officials to advance their bid. And then there's the question, the one that could make this a completely different kind of story. The senator specifically asked, were there any communications with Trump or his administration that involved pledging to make changes to CNN in exchange for favorable regulatory treatment of Paramount's bid? Think about what that means. CNN is one of Trump's most despised institutions. He has called it fake news for a decade. If Paramount buys all of WBD, Paramount gets CNN. The senators are asking formally, whether David Ellison promised to neuter or change CNN as part of a back-channel deal to get the Trump DOJ to play nice with his acquisition. Now, to be completely clear, these are questions, not accusations. Even though, in my opinion, it kind of sounds like accusations, but that's for you guys to decide. Nothing has been proven, but 8 senators don't send a formal preservation letter threatening a potential investigation based on absolutely nothing. The context? Ellison declined to testify before the Senate Antitrust Subcommittee in person earlier this month, the same hearing where Netflix's Ted Sarandos showed up and testified under oath. When Ellison finally submitted written responses, he ignored most of the questions about Trump. And here's the piece that ties it all together. Paramount's chief legal officer, the man navigating all of this regulatory chess, is Makan Delarim. Who is Mark Delarim? The man who ran the DOJ's antitrust division during Trump's first term. The senators noticed. Well, you should too. Paramount has to respond to this in writing by February 26th, the same day WBD's Q4 earnings call. So that Thursday is going to be earnings questions, deal questions, Senate letter questions, regulatory questions, and executives trying to sound calm while the building is actively on fire. So you might want to mark that day on your calendars. While all that is happening, California Attorney General Rob Bonta decided he wasn't going to be left out. Bonta issued a statement saying California is taking a close look at a WBD acquisition by either Netflix or Paramount, citing concerns about market concentration, competition, workers, and creative diversity. Now, here's why this matters more than a standard political statement. California isn't just a state with opinions about Hollywood. California is where Hollywood is. Most American film and TV production physically happens there. The majority of the workforce this deal affects lives and works there. Federal antitrust clearance and state antitrust scrutiny are completely separate tracks. You can clear the DOJ waiting period and still have California AG Rob Bonta waiting at the door with a different set of requirements. This is another direct hit on Paramount's clear regulatory path narrative. Neither bidder gets a free pass here. All right, let's game out what happens between now and Monday. Ending number 1, Paramount goes big. David Ellison drops a number. Industry speculation, it's somewhere between $32 and $33 per share that the WBD board cannot legally ignore. If that happens, WBD has to evaluate it as a potentially superior proposal under the terms of their Netflix agreement. If they declare it superior, Netflix gets 4 days to counter. And here's the thing. Reuters sources reported this week that Netflix has ample room to increase its offer if pushed. So Zaslav potentially just used Paramount to force Netflix to pay billions more than they originally agreed to, which means David Zaslav might actually be the smartest guy in this entire saga, or the luckiest. Either way, you got to respect the play. Ending number 2, Paramount doesn't beat Netflix. Ellison comes in with something kind of higher, say $31 a share, but not enough to clear the superior proposal bar. WBD says, we considered it. The board sticks with Netflix, and the March 20th shareholder vote becomes a formality. This is the most likely scenario based on where things stand today. Ending number 3, the regulators decide to blow everything up. Even if Paramount offers $33 a share and the board flips, the Senate letter, the California AG, and the DOJ's own ongoing authority, and the foreign sovereign wealth fund question all become anchor chains on the deal timeline. Paramount wins the bid, but can they close it before everything unravels? And if they can't close fast, shareholders start questioning whether the ticking fee of $600 million per quarter is really enough cushion. This fight isn't just about who pays more. It's about who can survive the approval process without turning into a crater. So here's where we are today, Saturday morning as I'm recording this video. Netflix is still winning. Signed deal. Board recommends it. Employees prefer it. March 20th vote is set. Matching rights intact. War chest reportedly loaded. But Paramount's not dead. The HSR clearance, even oversold, chips away at the can't clear regulators argument. And if Ellison shows up Monday with $32 or $33 per share, fully financed, binding and clean, that changes the math a bit. What we don't know is what those Senate answers say on February 26th. What was discussed about CNN? What happened in the days before Trump said he wasn't getting involved? Whether there's a paper trail that nobody wants found. What I do know is this: the fate of Batman, HBO, Game of Thrones, and The Sopranos, DC Comics, and CNN, the entire future shape of the streaming wars, is being decided this weekend in boardrooms and back channels by a very small number of extremely wealthy people. And we're all just here watching it happen. Drop your prediction in the comments. Does Ellison go $33 a share, or does he fold? Does Netflix match? Does Zaslav pull off the greatest leverage play in Hollywood history? I'll be watching all weekend. I'm the Critical Nerd. Keep your expectations low, your receipts high, and I'll see you the second this thing breaks. And trust me, it's gonna break.